Okay.
Yes, ready.
Okay, good. Hear, hear. Torah, 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 all that. I am having a wonderful conversation with pianist Clipper Erickson, who is wearing the sweater and has the artwork hanging on the walls behind him. Clipper is in, where are you, Princeton?
Warminster, Pennsylvania.
I'm sorry I asked. Is that
It's
anywhere
well,
near?
it's near Philadelphia.
Okay, okay,
Near
good.
Philadelphia, where we just had a very small snowstorm that was way overbid, but it's very cold.
Okay, so that's about the media making this the, blitz of 1882 or something, all out of
Yeah, well,
proportion.
it was called Winter Storm Titan, but it wasn't exactly Titanic. At
Okay.
least not here.
All right, enough of that. And then here's another fun part. I am talking with composer Laurie Altman, and he's in Aspen, where he composes and skis, as I understand it. Wow, what about
Not at the
that?
same time, but
Well,
managed,
maybe.
Yeah.
managed to get a little bit of both in.
And here's the point. Thank you. I'm letting see how much I'm letting just sort of slide right over my something or other. And what we're going to talk about, and it's a little unusual, but I can tell you that Clipper Erickson is a bona fide Southern Californian. Yes, Santa Barbara kid who
Uh-huh.
had his debut with the Young Musicians Foundation at the age of 19 as a pianist, and has all we have to do is say we're talking Juilliard, we're talking Yale. He is teaching at Westminster Conservatory in Princeton and at Temple University in Philadelphia. And Laurie Altman has been is still, perhaps for all I know, you may go to bars and play jazz there in Aspen for all I know, but a jazz pianist, fabulous composer, incredible compositional skill. We'll talk about that in a minute. And we're talking. Have I missed anything there, Lori?
Well, it's fine. I'm not doing the bar thing anymore, but
Oh, okay. Oh, that's
so
good to know. That is good to know. I see. And we're talking about a new CD, and I have been hunkering to review CDs and talk about CDs, new music being written, composed, recorded, all that good stuff. We're talking about a new CD, Convergence. It is all the music of Laurie Altman. And in particular, it's a wonderful album. I don't want to use that horrible word crossover, but there is some wonderful jazz composition of Laurie's, and there is some extraordinary, what we might call, for lack of that stupid word, classical art music, some incredible art music. So we're talking about a composer who knows exactly what he's doing and has had the best possible training, and we're going to discuss that in a minute. But the new CD is called Convergence. And let me find this wonderful European company label. And you can look, you folks out there in Southern California can look this label up. Fabulous catalog of incredibly interesting, juicy, wonderful new recordings, just as is this new album, Convergence. The label is called neosmusic.com, and it's neos-music.com. So go have a look, and you might want to purchase and download Laurie Altman's CD that we're going to talk about,
it's
Convergence.
located, incidentally, Dan, it's located in Munich. The company is located in Munich.
I saw that it was a German company, and
Yeah.
isn't that the joy of the new age? I can just go dial up and order a CD from
So,
Munich. Yeah, geez, if only I had this kind of technology when I was 16. Anyway, what I'm going to focus on in this wonderful album, let me just name a few of the pieces here. Well, we're going to focus on, because of Clipper's preparation and involvement, we're going to look at Laurie Altman's Sonata for Piano Number 5 that opens the CD, and then his Pedro's Story for solo piano. We'll talk about those two, but we have other wonderful stuff. A piece for tenor saxophone, soprano saxophone, piano, and double bass. A gallery tour, Romer Berdin. I assume that refers to the artist,
the
the
painter,
painter.
Romeo Bearden, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, me and my
That's all
Berdin
right.
loans. Tomato. Yeah. 3 for Duke for soprano, flute, and piano. Wonderful combination of instruments. Again, in a jazz-ish, as I recall from listening to the CD, sort of a
Right.
jazz-ish medium. But let's just look at this Piano Sonata Number 5. And by the way, I am immediately want to hear all the other piano sonatas. And here's why. This is going to start the conversation, I hope, a bit. Looking at the score, as I do as a professional musician, watching it go by, listening to the way Clipper has figured it out, and I will talk about that. An incredibly complex, detailed, structured beautifully composed, very, very clear score, but a contemporary piece. I found it gorgeous. But, you know, I've been around a while, too, so I hear things better than perhaps first or second listeners. But the structure of this piece, as Clipper mentions in the program notes, Laurie Altman's intelligence as a composer, the structure of his narratives, and frankly, I find so far everything I've listened to by Altman's a narrative, a very clear and fascinating narrative with motifs, deliberate tonal areas, and so on, recapitulations, the whole thing. He's a master composer. May I congratulate you, Laurie Altman.
Thank you.
But I want to talk about the process. Can I just ask, it's the process of creating this music and being so certain of its message. By the way, both the Piano Sonata and Pedro's story, very moving, very clear to the mind. What is the, how do you do this all these years, Laurie? Is there any kind of process?
Well, I mean, the process as it relates to Piano Sonata Number 5 is that there's a programmatic story behind it. This is the passing of a son, my youngest son, Olivier, and a need to express a way out of my grief, a way out of my vision of who he was, and what he meant to me. Hence, the piece sort of evolved from a very clear sense of an introduction, which begins the entire composition, which continues throughout. The introduction opens the piece, and it sets forth all of the material that subsequently is used in the piece of music. You know, the only other thing that I would add here is that we as composers must learn to use the byproducts of the manner and the way in which we speak. Jazz was an indelible part of my background. Hence, it's going to find its way into my music. The third movement, for example, is my take on the black spiritual, nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Okay? There are jazz chords, which you've alluded to as you spoke to me the other day, that you can find in the piece because I'm using what is important to me and what is the way that I need to speak as a composer. I've been very, very fortunate to have Clipper Erickson, who keeps me on my toes. I'm up to Sonata Number 8, which I've already begun here, so I have to try to stay ahead of him, which is
You're way ahead.
Presumably I'm way ahead of him.
Don't worry about that.
I think Clipper, one last thing I would say, and then I'd like Clipper to talk. I think this is in some ways, and I think Clipper's pointed this out, one of the most organic pieces of music that I've ever written.
And what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I think there's a coherency to it that works. Ideas are played with in a very, very clear and precise way. Maybe the vision of my son, constantly in my mind and in my eyes, required that for me. So the piece is both organic in the sense of its, I think, constant sense of continuity, which I think works. It's not a pastiche piece in any way, shape, or form. Let me turn this over to Clipper. I don't want to take all of his time.
Let me jump in to help move that over. Here's the deal, Clipper. Listening to this CD and your performance, aside from just the stunning virtuosity, you didn't study with John Ogden for nothing.
Yeah, he was the man.
But aside from just the virtuosity, what always fascinates me, and we all know in the professional music, in classical music, some conductors get it, some don't. Some pianists interpret a piece exactly right, and others miss that interpretation. Listening to your performance of we're right now on the fifth Piano Sonata, but also Pedro's story, it just is a wonderment to me, again, the process by which we're going to now ask, by which you conclude this is how the piece should be. And as far as I'm concerned, you are the discoverer of the deep inner meanings and beauty and gorgeousness of this piece. Now it's your turn.
Well, first of all, I have to say what appeals to me about Laurie's music. I get scores handed to me on a regular basis by composers, and a lot of people are asking me to play their music. But Laurie's music has something that is really a cut above all of those, most of what I get. And the reason is that what's rare about his music is that there is a sense of narrative. And there is a sense of lyricism and arching lyricism in the music that is absent from a great deal of recently composed music. And I think that's one of the reasons why people have a kind of wary view of recently composed music, is because in a lot of music that's absent. But it's not in Laurie's. And I think that the reason for that is his jazz background, because melody is so important to jazz, and that's part of who he is. And second of all, the narrative about his personal experience. I love music that is personal, that narrates a personal experience of the composer. And that goes back to Beethoven, it goes back to Schumann, to Brahms, to all of the great composers. And that's really what they were about, was relating their personal experience of life in their music. And that's what makes me want to spend the hours that I need to spend to learn all the complicated notes and to master all of those things. I get impatient if I have to do all of those things for no good reason. But for Laurie, it's a work of joy, because this is music that also speaks to me, that speaks to my personal experience too. And I understand some of what his experience is, because I've had some similar experiences in my life, and tragedies and grief. So I understand what that's all about, and I understand how that expresses through music. So far as learning the piece and discovering it, I learned this piece in the summer of 2011 to prepare to premiere it at Temple in the fall of 2011, and to record it in New York for the CD. And Laurie and I had wonderful sessions together before the premiere of what he meant in the piece. And in some cases, we actually deviated in certain details from the score, because it's often not so possible to notate exactly what you hear or what you feel in a score, in a piece of music. That's just simply dots on a piece of paper, and how that translates into sound and to emotion and to feeling. That's a kind of a communication that has to take place between the performer and the composer. And that means the composer, whether he's dead or alive, is just that much nicer when the composer is alive, because then you can ask questions. We all wish we could to call up J.S. Bach on the phone and ask, well, what did you mean when you wrote this? But we can't do that for Chopin, but I can with Laurie, and that's really quite a gift.
Yeah.
I think if I might just add one other thing, I think the wonderful thing about this work process with Clipper was that he possessed, from the very outset, a real sense of an understanding of what this music was all about. You know, when he alluded just a moment ago to the personal, that's to me what great art is about. It's about moving from the personal to the universal. Okay? And
exactly.
That's really what we're trying to do, from a point of precision of feeling. And I think that I discovered immediately with Clipper, when he started work on this piece, his understanding of it, and the suggestions that he made in terms of pauses, accelerandos here, maybe retardandos, which are not always indicated in the score, really indicated to me that he understood what I was meaning and wanted very, very much. And so the joy of writing a piece is the knowledge that I have a Clipper Erickson there who's going to perform it.
It is in my view, just who knows who else is going to record this sonata, but in my view it's absolutely perfect. And for all you, both of you just took all of my words out of my mouth. And again, this business, you can see it when you're watching the score. The moments of hesitation, the tiny silences that are so important to the meaning and function of the piece. And just one last thought about the fifth piano sonata, Laurie, it is immediately communicative. That opening lonesome, lost statement is devastating, really. And then, as you have discussed in your program notes, the C sharp minor tonality and how you use it and bring it back and so on in the first movement in the whole piece for that matter. And then of course this fifth movement of the sonata, this incredible fugue that is all forward movement. I believe you describe it as such. Anything, just a final word on the fifth piano sonata, then we'll look at Pedro's story for just a bit.
Well, it seemed reasonably clear to me that the fugue was the way to end this piece. There was a sense of energy and propulsion, a sense of life force, in a sense, that I wanted to transcend the previous movement, which is the sadness of nobody knows the trouble I've seen. I needed to find a means of expressing that my life went on. Never the same, but it went on to write more music.
Very similar message to anybody that understands late Beethoven understands what this is. The will to live, and the life energy that still survives, no matter what tragedy, no matter what has happened to us. This will to live and this life force goes on, and that's what's in that fugue.
Yes, and also as a further compliment, to me Beethoven is all narrative. Deep,
right.
Profound, very personal narrative.
Very much so.
Likewise, this fifth piano sonata, a wonderful, wonderful performance and a wonderful composition. Very, very intelligent. Very intelligent. Now,
we also might add for our people who are listening that we were both blessed at the presence of Judith Sherman, who is both producer and engineer of this. Judy is the producer for such wonderful composers as Steve Reich and John Harbison and Kronos and Pacifica Quartet, and we were blessed by her love of the piece as well as her ability to find a soundscape that made it
the sound is quite compelling.
Thank you very much for that added information. It's very important. The recording artists, the people who recreate that sound, find the space that works and are in control of it. And it's a beautiful, beautiful recording. So technically, beautiful recording. Right. Give me a quick one. Unfortunately, we've already blown about 15 minutes, but let's just do a quick look at remember, everybody, it's a full, wonderful album of Laurie Altman's music, including his jazz pieces, more jazz-influenced pieces. But because Clipper's here with us, we're looking at that fifth piano sonata, a fabulous work, and now Pedro's story, obviously a narrative, a big narrative, and very important, very eccentric, I think. Clipper gave it. So who wants to tell me Pedro's story?
Well, you can tell us about the commission.
The commission emerged from a Mexican pianist, Ana Cervantes, and she had 15 other composers who were doing impressions of a novella by Juan Rolfo, a very well-known Mexican writer, photographer, a very interesting man. And so this was to be my take after I read Pedro Padrón, which is the name of the novella, my impression of it. I was a little bit disappointed in the other pieces, which seemed a little bit like New Age dreamy music, which is one of my least favorite types of classical music. And hence, I needed to write something that I felt was closer to the intent of the novella and the impression that I made it. So it comes out as a kind of a composite of a bit of jazz, coupled with a kind of Espanol kind of feeling at various points in time, and harmonies. Clipper can go on from there.
Well, this piece is much shorter and in one movement than the sonata, but it is also very much connected with narrative. And the narrative of the story has to do a lot with sin and with death and with guilt. It's a very intense story, but it's told in the guise of magical realism, which what happens is you have all these broken narratives when you read the story, and you find out at the end or about in the middle of the book that actually all the characters are ghosts, that the only one alive is the person that is telling the story. So I think that sort of suggested to some composers to write this new agey ghost-like music, but that's not actually what the narrative is about. So Laurie has penetrated into the narrative much more closely, into the meaning of the story, rather than the surface of it. And that also appealed to me a great deal. And the piece is it's a wonderful little 5-6 minute piece with many changes.
Yes.
The opening is sort of jaunty, rather jazz, very jazz influence. Then there's Hispanic influences later, and the end is sort of this
dreamy thing.
This dissembling.
Yeah.
Say again. Speak that one. Give us a little more on that one. I didn't quite follow you. Dissembling.
Dissembling is the end, where the people, the characters actually are revealed to be ghosts, and the narrative just kind of like trails off. But the narrative, the way the piece evolves, is the same as the reader's experience when you read the story.
Wow. Well, I was deeply moved by the piece, I'll tell you that. So, I had no idea what the story was, but I was moved by it. And once again, we talk about how clear your narratives are. I mean, this is the most impressive thing I've taken away, is you are very intelligently projecting a real story that a listener can pick up on and can follow and can understand.
One last thing. I grew up as a composer in the serial age, and I sort of ended up rejecting that type of music only because it seemed so much a form without substance. It seemed both dogmatic and didactic in its sense, without any heart. And if I had to describe myself in the briefest of terms, I'd say I was a heart composer and not a head composer.
Thank you very much, and that's exactly what that
Thank you.
That was the downfall, if you will, or has been the downfall. If people can't have some kind of emotional response, they're not going to stay long, are they? Let's just. I'm not done yet. Hang on, Clipper.
That's right. I'm not leaving.
We are going to have to end it, but I just want to really actually we are done. I'm gonna thank you both, Clipper Erickson, pianist, brilliant, stunning pianist. You blow my brains out every time I hear you play. I don't know how you do it.
You're very sweet, Dan.
Obviously, a great, maybe even raging intellectual. That's lots of fun. Laurie Altman, a very clear, communicative, narrative-driven composer. What a treat to meet you for the first time and to hear your music for the first time. This is the sort of thing where you want to hear more. I want to go chase down all of those other sonatas. I guess that you mentioned there are now 8 piano sonatas.
There are 8.
Wow. And happily living in Switzerland apparently,
Yes.
and vacationing in Aspen or something.
Colorado.
You know what can I say? That's doing pretty good. Let's see, what else? We're talking about the new Laurie Altman CD. It's called Convergence. Hang on, I'm going to find that company. Go ahead, tell me.
It's Neos Music, located in Munich, Germany. And if I be allowed a quick plug,
please.
The new CD on Neos, Divergence, is coming out this week.
You mean yours?
Mine, yeah.
So we've had a convergence.
We've had a convergence and we've had a divergence.
That's about to show up on that website, yeah?
Yeah, it'll be,
is this
be
more
on the website.
Is this more?
And yeah, it's a very different kind of a CD, recorded in Vienna with K plus K, a wonderful string quartet group, plus piano vibes and clarinet.
Wow, it sounds like you're happily residing in Europe. Part of me envies you. I know Clipper knows a thing or two about Europe. It's still a wonderful, wonderful place for people that love classical music and art music and all that.
Yeah, but the funny thing is I tease him about how he goes to Aspen to go skiing. And you live in Switzerland.
Oh.
I know, but we know a lot of people out here, and the snow is much better.
Oh, a fine.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, there you go, a fine point. Listen, Laurie Altman, Clipper Erickson, thank you very much for giving me these few minutes so we can really talk shop about Laurie Altman's new CD. We're done. Thanks again.
Dan Keppel, thank you very much.
Dan.
Clipper, thank you.
Thank you.